I'm so pleased to invite a set of remarkable leaders in higher education to the stage. In fact, I'll invite them to come up right now as I'm introducing them. One thing we've learned is the importance of fostering healthy conflict among students, in part because college is such an important setting to teach students how to discuss tough topics in the right way, and in part because it's become clear the business community wants employees who have the skills of healthy conflict. So we were so grateful when the President's Forum, a group of colleges, came to us and offered to create a consortium of Disagree Better trainings and curriculums. We're so grateful that they came here today to talk about what they've been doing for a few minutes. We have Sue Ellspermann, who is my dear friend, president of Ivy Tech, and someone who we served together as lieutenant governors from the great state of Indiana. We also have Frank Dooley, the president of Purdue Global, and Becky Takeda-Tinker, president of Colorado State University Global, and Greg Fowler, the president of the University of Maryland Global Campus. With that, I'll turn it over to Sue.
Thank you, Governor Cox. It is so great to see you. Thank you, governors, for this opportunity with the NGA to do this really important work, which we've been delighted to be a part of. And as we heard from President Sass and Dr. Willer, there's some great opportunities here. Some of you think about higher education and what you've seen in the papers lately, and as you heard noted, it's not a lot of good news. You know, you've got these headlines from the Washington Post: colleges are ground zero for mob attacks, and free speech faces a reckoning on college campuses. Lots of bad headlines going on. So we know as higher education, we need to be part of the solution, and we do think that this Disagree Better is a way that we can be engaged. So the organization, President's Forum, are innovative, forward-leaning institutions serving mostly working learners. So we don't have college campuses with housing and sports. We're working with those upskilling Americans every day. In this area, we think we can do some good work together, and so we're going to explore that you already heard us introduced by Governor Cox, so we're going to get right into the questions. So the first question, I'm going to ask my colleagues to summarize the work that each of their institutions is doing to help learners develop the skills and competencies necessary to disagree better. So I'm going to start with CSU Global. Becky.
Great, thank you. So to set the stage, the World Economic Forum has announced that, or predicted, that over 50% of all working Americans will need to be reskilled, upskilled, skilled by 2025. The market is huge. Learning, continued learning, is now in vogue, which aligns perfectly with what we are finding with our over 3,000 partners and the Disagree Better initiative course, thanks to Governors Polis and Cox for their leadership. Our course has attracted our partnerships and their employees' interest. My goodness, even the staff and faculty at CSU Global all have wanted to take it as well. So that has been tremendous. And then we've integrated into all of our programs and courses. And what we are finding is that students, and I have the data which I will share, but the data shows they have really felt better about learning how to disagree better. It matters. And so the impact of what we're able to do through fully online education, and all of our expertise in working with post-traditional students and how to keep them engaged has been put into play with this course, and with the data that I'll share with you in a little bit has really set the stage for positive impact, and we are so grateful for the contributions and leaderships of Governors Cox and Polis for their leadership to get us into this initiative so that higher ed matters in a way around the dinner table, if not in the workplace. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Frank.
Well, I mean, we heard Ben Sass say a few minutes ago that we need to rethink higher ed. And to a certain extent, the universities that are part of the President's Forum, there are about 20 of us, are probably some of that thinking in action today. As Sue said, we largely focus on educating working adults. At Purdue Global, my typical student comes to us, they're around 30. Most of them have some credit but no degree, and now it's time to get on in life and find that degree. one of the other things that we think we do as well as anyone in the country is try to recognize prior learning, however you might have had that, whether that be military service, whether that be you've completed industry certifications. We have lots of aggressive test out to demonstrate to us that you understand something, because why do I want to put you through a class if you already understand the concepts? One of the other things that's really quite remarkable, Purdue Global, so we view ourselves, you know, we had a governor who got us started. He was the president of Purdue at the time, but Mitch Daniels was the impetus behind lots of Purdue Global. And with that, we're in Indiana, as Sue is, and we have worked very closely with Ivy Tech to try to figure out what's a pathway to get the student who's completed their associate's degree so they can move right into their bachelor's degree and both get. So we have phenomenal partnership with our community colleges, trying to help these students, just as Becky said, move forward in their lives because they're very interested in getting them to a better position in their life.
Yeah, and then the number of institutions around the U.S. that have come to us regarding looking at the learning outcomes so that they could articulate it for credit into their programs and courses. So,
and I will add one thing too. You know, Becky and the folks from CSU Global were so generous, because what Sue and I have done with our institutions is said, we want to do it in Indiana. And they opened up, you know, here's how we're doing it. It's not a secret sauce, and it's not something we're trying to hide. It's something that we need to get across the country. In our cases, what has happened, and maybe Sue, you just want to add a little bit, we've taken faculty from both Purdue Global and Ivy Tech and brought them to the room together and say, let's build this for our students as well.
So we'll be launching this fall with our faculty and staff of both institutions first, and then to our students later in the fall as a 1 credit hour, 4-week course built off of Colorado State University Global. So thank you, Becky. And Greg, if you want to speak to what you're doing.
Certainly, and so the University of Maryland Global Campus has about 100,000 Americans in about 20 different countries around the globe. About half of them, about 100 of those locations are here in the U.S. The others are often in places where we aren't necessarily up on the best of agreements with all of the people who we are sending our service members into spaces to operate with. Everything from South Korea, Okinawa, Saudi Arabia, Romania, Poland. And so when we send our service members and their families to these various places, one of the things that they have to do is figure out how to engage with those local populations who in many cases see the world very differently than they do. And one of the things we are doing at University of Maryland Global Campus is working with those various service members, the various commanders who are in those areas on the ground to make sure that they are deployed in such a way that they are able to engage in those spaces. And as a result, we are trying to take what we are learning from those skills that they are having and trying to figure out how do we expand that to the other populations that we serve. About 55,000 of those students are somehow military affiliated, whether it's a service member or their family or their spouse. But the other half of those students are, of course, people who are in the workforce, people who are just simply trying to go to school and get their degree for any number of reasons. And one of the things we want to be able to do is figure out how do we make sure that we're deploying those skills that we are seeing happen around the world and here in various places around the country to those populations as well. So we're exploring this with the state and others as we move forward.
Terrific. So the second question you probably want to know after you saw Dr. Willer's research is, what are the skills and competencies that are most critical with disagreeing better? So I'm going to start, Frank, with you to speak on that. I'm sure Becky will add in, and we'll have some more thoughts, but
all right, well,
take it away.
Thanks, Sue. I guess one of the things to say is that, you know, one of the motivations has actually been the states. And you can see it in 2 different ways. The first thing is, you know, we met with Governor Polis and Spencer Cox, and you brought this to us a year ago. And this is a response to them. So, I mean, that's thank you for that. But the second thing, we're seeing states across the country ask the question, well, we have positions in our state government. Do you need a degree for it? Historically, you did. What if you had the skills for it? So this would be an example of one of those skills that maybe you don't need to have the degree, but you certainly need to have the skill and the competency to get there. So that's what we did. I'm going to say that defining, you can start with the concept, and we saw the videos and it looks good. Well, it's compelling, and it might help me get elected. That's compelling. But then when you try to take it and pull it into a curriculum, you start to break it apart and try to understand what that means. What we did in our particular case is we took faculty from our communications faculty and faculty from our political science department and put them together and say, what does it mean to disagree better? And you should tell us what these learning outcomes need to be in the course. And once again, we also had the materials from Colorado State, and this is our beliefs in what it is. But I would say, as Sue and I and Ivy Tech and Purdue Global look at it, we really come down to two fundamental concepts. The first thing is positive conflict management. And it just isn't politics where you have to deal with conflict management. Think about how many managers have a hard time giving bad news to one of their employees, all right? The second component that really becomes critical of this is artful persuasion. And simply learning to make a more compelling argument as to why I think my position is stronger than yours. And when you probably pull them up, it's really part of communication. But as a skill, we broke it apart. And that's really where we come down. And then there's what we're trying to find for our students in particular. One of the differences between the 30-year-olds that we're trying to educate versus the 18 to 22-year-olds that Ben at Florida is trying to educate, our students aren't really interested in lots of the other things at a university. What our students are really interested in is getting on with life as quickly as they possibly can. They want to see a path to where they're going to have a better opportunity to support themselves and their families. So when you can show them, and I think what the evidence is going to show is when you can show them this is something that's going to help you move forward, they readily engage with it. And I'll turn it over.
Okay, so I'll make this very quick. The 4 learning outcomes that we have in our 4-week class, which is priced at $175 and is worth 1 collegiate credit, is to compare and contrast conflict styles, recognizing one's personal dominant conflict style. The second is to examine various interpersonal conflict resolution tools and strategies. The third is to employ conflict resolution strategies through mediation and negotiation. And the fourth is to distinguish the links between conflict and persuasion. And from the students, the learners, which are professionals through our partners, as well as students in our courses and programs, prior to taking to the course, 44% of students indicated they felt very uncomfortable having conversations where they disagreed. After taking the course, 100% of students indicated they felt very comfortable or comfortable having conversations where they disagreed. They actually really got tools and strategies they needed. 66% of students indicated their level of comfort improved after taking the course. 89% of students felt the course provided them with the tools to have productive conversations in both personal and professional settings. And 78% indicated they would be interested in similar topics related to conflict management following the course, which just opened up their awareness to this is something they struggled with, but it could be something they could deal with and learn to solve on their own through the fact that it was formal learning. And so who would have thought that they needed that facilitation, but it's clear that they do. And the number of universities and colleges coming to us now to do that level of review so they could not only send their students to us and articulate the courses back into their programs and courses, but to create their own. We're not competing against each other. We are trying to help society. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to do that. And we're grateful to both Governor Cox and Governor Polis for their facilitation and leadership.
One point that maybe we didn't make is that this was online.
Fully online, 100%.
Fully online.
With an instructor.
Yeah, but fully online.
A communications expert, yes. Wouldn't have been me, but yeah.
Very good. Greg, would you like to add?
So one of the things, in addition to the online version, I get an opportunity to spend a good deal of time with our service members in their various locations around the globe. So, and when we talk to them in their classes and we're talking about interactions with the various cultures. So again, I go back to, we just opened up locations in Romania and Poland, but we also have places in Saudi Arabia, Djibouti, South Korea. And when we're talking with them about how they're going to engage the local populations, what they want to know is, how do we engage? And so the skill sets, one of the things we're trying to do at UMGC is be very specific about what are you supposed to know, do, and be in whatever role you're trying to do. So when we're talking about specific skills here, one of the things we're talking about is how do we nurture that healthy curiosity and allow them to get into the act of active listening. Ironically, a lot of the students, when they're talking to us about why they want to take these classes and understand better how to engage with local cultures, it's because in many instances, hey, they decided to marry a spouse who's from the local culture and they want to be able to engage with the family, or they want to understand the relationships and how do I have these conversations in ways that suggest that there may be differences, but those differences aren't necessarily disagreements. So one of the big conversations we try to have is there are plenty of things in life that are different, but how do we make sure, but not everything in life that is different is something that requires conflict. And so getting them to understand the difference between this, why do we have a value here that this rises to this level and in other cases it doesn't, is part of this conversation. So again, as we're looking at all these various skill sets, active listening, healthy curiosity being nurtured into something that could be an engagement, trying to understand the difference between difference and disagreement, and then how to deal with different types of cultures around the world. We want to take those things beyond simply our service members' populations and apply them to all of the students who we're working with around the globe in whatever version that may be, face-to-face, hybrid, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a class. In many of these instances, these are workshops, these are short-term experiences that are also helping the students gain those skills.
Okay, so last question. What is the role of higher education in disagreeing better moving forward? Next year, the year after, what's our role in this disagree better?
In general, and this is something the President's Forum presidents we've been talking about in the last couple days, is return on investment. Our learners today, in order to finish a course, finish a program, there has to be something in it for them. So when we look at what we're doing as an institution, we start with what is it that job demand, job posts are seeking. Communication skills are definitely on those lists. And so building those, taking that construct of what is it that the market is demanding and what is it paying, and can we build that information into a course is where we start. And then we integrate things like industry certifications, things that hiring employers are seeking for living wages and above. Does it have the skills, knowledge, and abilities that are in demand, again, on job posts? Do they have virtual internships? Are there abilities for students who are in the workplace to come back and have that be worth credit? And I know that's what you were talking about. It's right on. That is what they need. Do we matter in the life cycle of professional work achievement, and having that matters. Work-ready assignments. So when we think about disagreeing better and the work of the instructors to facilitate those conversations, they're actually able to practice it, put together presentations, and take it to their workplace and share it. And that has meant a lot to them to get to the end of the course and then to their programs. And then the instructors absolutely matter. Not only are they have the academic skills and expertise that they need at that level for the qualifications to teach, but do they actually have the skills necessary in what they're teaching for industry? And when we think about communications, all of our instructors for Disagree Better, for what we have now, it's in several different courses, but one of them is COM 304, COM 210, 215. They are all communications experts. They have the academic expertise and the proven ability in the workplace to communicate effectively and facilitate and coach students on how they can disagree, how they can be uncomfortable and still communicate effectively to get to the goal that they are trying to get to. So we work on that, and then the final thing is there a tangible ROI? And this is something the presidents have been talking about in the last couple days. What is the cost of the education and what is the return? And when you think about the course costs for a 1-credit course for Disagree Better, like at Global, it's $175. What is it that they're getting? Well, we know that that's a valuable skill that their employer wants them to have. So they're taking the class, maybe they're not even paying for it, or they're paying for it but it's something that qualifies them for a job, and they can prove it, and they can disagree better, showing the tools that they've learned and the strategies that they've gained in the learning on disagreeing better. And so that tangible ROI is so important, not only for Disagree Better, but for higher ed in general. And that is what we are all working to do. Does the cost outweigh the benefits? And one of the last really quick things that we know at Global is that our program completers, over 90% are working, over 70% are working. This is at the bachelor level and at the master's level. Over 70% are working in the field under which they completed their program. Those that have completed bachelor's programs are earning $40,000. The median average is $40,000 higher than when they were before they completed the program, so while they were earning their program, their certificate or degree. And at the master's level, it's over $32,500 as a median average gain. So that type of tangible measurement is absolutely key, and it's what our universities have been working on and are happy to share and step into. So,
Frank, anything you want to
Yeah,
wrap up?
just, one thing I'd like to add is the movement to skills across higher education is a really important thing. And we have to be cognizant when you go back and talk to your commissions of higher ed, what are we doing about skills? One of the things that's a challenge for universities today is, to a certain extent, there's a Tower of Babel. And what I mean is there isn't a common definition as to what skills are. So there's an effort called the Open Skills Network that comes with the dictionary. There's another one that's done by Burning Glass that has a different dictionary. There's a third one at the Credential Engine. And every time you take one of these dictionaries and then compare it against what you're doing in your courses, you're trying to match the skills against it. We're closely tied with the Burning Glass. There are 60,000 different skills. And we took our faculty and we took every course and said, what skills are you teaching in your respective courses? So it's a major lift for your institutions as you try to capture skills and bring it in. But for institutions like ours, it's incredibly important that we do it, because this is what's going to help these students move forward in their degrees and get the kinds of skills they need to move forward in their careers.
So we have 2 minutes left.
All right.
Greg, are you okay? If got a quick.
I'll take 30 seconds to say
Perfect.
two things. One, when we're talking about our service members and their families, what we want to make sure that they do is actually continue to demonstrate those skills as they continue to move forward. Two, the big thing that we really want to focus in on is, I'm so glad this is not called come to agreement. Instead, it is, we will disagree, and that's okay. So part of this is getting comfortable with that level of uncomfortableness that allows us to continue to have diversity and other conversations that with people who may or may not feel or look like we do.
Very good. We've got 1 minute left. Governor Cox, can we take one question? Is there one question that you'd like to ask? Anything of us. This is your chance to put higher ed on the spot.
I want to give Greg a shout out. I was our ambassador in Germany. Maryland is huge in Germany with our troops. We had a great working relationship, so God bless you. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Any questions? Please.
In Wisconsin, we have, 200,000 people that are disabled in any number of ways. And frankly, they don't access the education system a lot after they become 18-year-olds or 21-year-olds. How do those people fit in? Whether it's disabilities, physical disabilities, mental disabilities.
Anybody want to take a shot?
I know you're
Yeah.
all from higher education, but it's still a lot of folks.
I would say for sure we're all open access. So we will serve in Department of Corrections. We serve in any.
we provide
serve
special
many.
readers for those that are hearing impaired and or have issues reading, that we actually have those readers for online. The technology is tremendous out there for learning. And it really does aid those. Gosh, when we had commencement just a month or so ago, The number of people in wheelchairs and crutches that have mobility, physical mobility, not only with all the other learning challenges, but then physical issues, and that they are then able to go to school fully online and have access to all the student support services.
I would add one, Governor Evers, is we have individuals on the autism spectrum who find it very difficult sometimes to be in a social setting. Has nothing to do with their intellect, has nothing to do with their ability. And we have found that some of those students come to us and excel. And sometimes it's really important for individuals to also build self-confidence and an awareness that you can accomplish, and that gives them this belief in themselves that I think helps them move forward in their life.
Yeah, and I would just add that one of the things that the current technology allows is for the voices that otherwise might not have been participating in the conversation or disagreement are now empowered to do so. So one of the things we're thinking about is how do we create those opportunities, those exercises, those places where those voices can be added to it, because otherwise it's not that there isn't disagreement, it's that there's this negative silence. There's a vacuum of other positions. So the more we're able to create the space in which that happens and celebrate that, the more those voices are going to be part of the conversation and part of the larger community.
All right. Thank you, NGA. Thank you, Governor Cox, for this opportunity. Know that the President's Forum stands ready to make disagree better a big thing across the country in our institutions, and we look forward to working together. But thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. We're so proud of your work. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.